fourth challenge is to take back our streets from crime, gangs, and drugs. And we have actually been making progress on this count as a nation because of what local law enforcement officials are doing, because of what citizens and neighborhood patrols are doing. We're making some progress. Much of it is related to the initiative called community policing, because we have finally gotten more police officers on the street. That was one of the goals that the President had when he pushed the crime bill that was passed in 1994. He promised 100,000 police. We're moving in that direction, but we can see it already makes a difference. Because if we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super-preditors. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And the President has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere.
And I've got some specific ideas about what we can do for criminal justice reform. We need national guidelines about the use of force, particularly lethal force. We need to work with the 18,000 police departments in our country, some of whom are real models, and others should be learning from about how they de-escalate tension rather than turning a routine traffic stop into a killing. And of course, we need to investigate the implicit bias that unfortunately too many of us still have. And when it's an implicit bias in a police officer, it can lead to an escalating situation. So
such an important issue. And what about right now, as we're seeing these thousands of children come across, shunted off into makeshift shelters?
It's horrible.
Hard choice. Let them stay in the United States or send them back?
Well, 2 quick points. One, the numbers are increasing dramatically. And the main reason I believe why that's happening is that the violence in certain of those Central American countries is increasing dramatically. And there is not sufficient law enforcement or will on the part of the governments of those countries to try to deal with this exponential increase in violence, drug trafficking, the drug cartels, and many children are fleeing from that violence.
Should they be able to stay here? It's safer.
It may be safer, but that's not the answer. I do not.
So should they be sent back?
Well, first of all, we have to provide the best emergency care we can provide. We have children 5 and 6 years old who have come up from Central America. We need to do more to provide border security in southern Mexico.
They should be sent back now?
Well, they should be sent back as soon as it can be determined who responsible adults and their families are, because there are concerns about whether all of them can be sent back, but I think all of them who can be should be reunited with their families. And just as Vice President Biden is arguing today in Central America, we've got to do more. I started this when I was secretary to deal with the violence in this region, to deal with border security. But we have to send a clear message. Just because your child gets across the border, that doesn't mean the child gets to stay. So we don't want to send a message that is contrary to our laws or will encourage more children to make that dangerous journey.
And I stand here in your space, and I say this as respectfully as I can. If you don't tell black people what we need to do.
I understand what you're saying.
Also respectfully.
Yeah. Well, respectfully, if that is your position, then I will talk only to white people. We'll be back here in 10 years having the same conversation.
Don't tell me what to say.
Hillary Rodham Clinton. And by the way, all my girlfriends love that you got that Rodham right in there prominently. Thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, thank you, Joy. It's really exciting to be here talking to you about this.
Thank you. Well, so I want to first of all congratulate you on the book. It is surprising, I think, in a lot of ways, because it's very personal. It's actually very emotional in points. It's very wonky. Was it cathartic to write it, or was it excruciating?
It was both. It started out excruciating, and as I write in the book, it was really painful, coming off of a surprising, devastating loss to Donald Trump.
Now, when I left law school, my first job was with the Children's Defense Fund.
Well, you know, Hillary Clinton's an old friend, but they're not friends in politics. We profoundly disagreed with the forms of the welfare reform bill.
By the time Bill and I left the White House, welfare rolls had dropped 60%.
You know, many years after that, when many people are pronouncing welfare reform a great success, you know, we've got growing child poverty. The poor are suffering.
My first job was with the Children's Defense Fund. And I'm not going to ever call on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wait, you want me to tell you what my husband thinks? My husband is not the Secretary of State. I am. So you ask my opinion, I will tell you my opinion. I'm not going to be channeling my husband.
I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had teas, but what I decided to do was to fulfill my profession, which I entered before my husband was in public.
Look, I take responsibility for every decision I made, but that's not why I lost. We need to recognize our privilege and practice humility.
Second level is when I see women, and look, it's predominantly white women. Let's just be clear about that. I won women. I lost white women, although I got more white women's votes than President Obama did in 2012. So this is an ongoing challenge. But when I see women doing that, I think, why are they publicly disrespecting themselves? Why are they opening the door to have someone say that about them in their workplace, in a community setting? Do they not see the connection there? And I think that's one of the problems with sexism. We had such a public and still an ongoing movement to expand civil rights. And again, I'm proud of the progress, but we still have a lot of problems we have to confront, because electing Barack Obama did not end racism, as we know all too well. But it gave the country a chance to say, hey, wait a minute, we are better than this. With sexism, it is still not viewed as the serious threat it is to women's aspirations, to the ability of young girls to imagine themselves doing all kinds of things.
And I will fight back against so-called right to work. Right to work is wrong for workers and wrong for America. Now, having said all this, why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask? Well, the choice for working families has never been clearer. I need your help to get Donald Trump's record out to everybody. Nobody should be fooled.
But I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian WikiLeaks raised doubts in the minds of people. You know, if the election had been on October 27th, I'd be your president.
So many Americans were absolutely sure they'd be celebrating the first female president in U.S. history. What happened? Please welcome, in her first talk show appearance since the debacle, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean no.
So good, and it's so raw, and it's so transparent. However, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said yesterday that it's sad that the last chapter of your public life is now going to be defined by propping up book sales with false and reckless attacks. She also said that you ran one of the most negative campaigns in history. What is your response to that?
You know, I honestly don't pay much attention to what she says. I win the Philadelphia suburbs by 13 points. I needed to win by 18 points to be able to counterbalance the rest of the state. That wasn't just me. That's how Democrats win Pennsylvania in presidential campaigns. It stopped my momentum, and it hurt me, particularly among women. And I have so much anecdotal evidence for this. And now researchers are starting to pull some of this together. You know, all of a sudden the husband turns to the wife. I told you, she's going to be in jail. You don't want to waste your vote. You know, the boyfriend turns to the girlfriend and says, she's going to get locked up. Don't you hear? She's going to get locked up. I mean, all of a sudden, it becomes a very fraught, kind of conflictual experience.
What I love here also
so
is
instead of saying,
the statement from Hillary Clinton here that it's all the evil men who are telling their women
These stupid women. If only the stupid women wouldn't listen to their men. It's their men who are turning them and saying, she's going to be locked up. And the women are going, oh, darling, okay, I guess I won't vote for her anymore. Like, that's how Hillary Clinton actually pictures her own female voters. I can't imagine why this lady lost. I cannot imagine why this deeply unlikable human being lost. Then she says it wasn't just Comey, it was also Russian meddling. So first of all, just to point something out about the Comey thing, yes, James Comey botched this thing all the way through. But if you recall, the botchery started with him not indicting her in the first place, not recommending indictment in the first place, by actively changing the standard of law back in July. Instead of just handing over his recommendation to Loretta Lynch, he did the bidding of Barack Obama, right? He basically was writing her exoneration statement before he even interviewed her. You don't get to complain about James Comey when it's James Comey's fault that you were even running competitively up until the end of the election cycle.
Like a drunk neighbor in your front yard, Hillary Clinton wandered onto yet another TV show to crap on the president.
You know, I was right in the middle of our government responding to the horrible effects of the earthquakes in Haiti. So I knew what we're capable of doing. And, you know, I waited because I thought, you know, they don't need me saying, hey, send naval assets, get the hospital ship Comfort down there. But a couple of days later, nothing was happening. So I tweeted, if they aren't the highest priority of your government in responding to such a terrible natural disaster, what are you people spending your time doing? Yeah. Right? Golfing, tweeting, watching cable TV?
She's a real piece of work. Look, I don't blame her. She's still angry, still bitter, still Hillary. Apparently finding her grandchildren boring. She cruises the airwaves, slamming the guy who beat her still, as people suffer and the guy who won consoles them.
Look, I take responsibility for every decision I made, but that's not why I lost. But I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian WikiLeaks raised doubts in the minds of people. You know, if the election had been on October 27th, I'd be your president. And at some point, it sort of bleeds over into misogyny.
Harvey Weinstein, friend of yours, right? Gave lots of, he gave lots of money to your campaign over time.
Not a lot, but he gave money.
How much?
Oh, I don't know, $12,000, $16,000, something like that.
Have you given it back or given it to charity?
We're going to. Yeah, we're going to.
How long will it take?
Oh,
I mean, surely you can just write a check and give the money back, can't you?
Well, it has to come out of our campaign funds.
Right.
So there's a little more, but it will be done. And but that's not the issue. The issue really is how terrible his behavior was. And finally, women have come forward to speak out about it, which they hadn't before, for all the reasons that they relate.
You are a beacon of feminism. You talk of, for women's rights. You knew Harvey Weinstein well. At what stage, and you must have known the rumors about him, Harvey will be Harvey.
No, I did not. I did not know.
But everyone knew rumors about him. Not specific cases, but everyone knew that Harvey Weinstein, apparently, in his circle, was a little bit,
Well, all I can tell you is that I did not hear those things. Look, we just elected a person who admitted sexual assault to the presidency. So there's a lot of other issues that are swirling around these kinds of behaviors that need to be addressed.